talk a little bit more about the retailers and what's at stake for them this Christmas Eve. Lori Walks is the president and co-founder of Cross-Ledge Investments. Lori, great to see you.
Pleasure to join you this morning.
I would guess that for the most part, you have a pretty good expectations as to how retailers are going to do minus today. Is that correct, or do you expect a lot of sales to be rung up today?
Well, the last 4 days going in today were 4 of the biggest 10 days of the shopping season, so a lot was riding on going into this weekend. Everything looked great heading into the season. We had a very strong back-to-school season. Black Friday was really good, but things have been a bit choppy over the past few weeks, so it's really been critical that these last few days come through.
I'm wondering if you think the retailers that are most exposed to the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast could be most in jeopardy, only because in these geographic areas we've seen storms, we've seen shootings, and then overall nationwide consumer confidence came in at the lowest reading since July.
Right, and there's no question, especially from Sandy at the beginning of November, there was a lot to make up as we got throughout the course of November. But again, Black Friday came back nicely. We actually think that it's more going to affect some of the lower income consumers as you look at that consumer confidence numbers than the higher end specialty names we think will hold up pretty well throughout the season.
Yeah, speaking of high-end specialty names, you do favor Kors and Lululemon, and those are arguably some of the highest multiple retailers out there. Specifically about Kors, what do you see them doing right, and what sorts of sales numbers do they need to see this holiday season in order to justify the valuation they're at right now?
Right, so they're at about, I think, 27 times, which given the kind of growth rate they've seen, I don't think is all that expensive. Their same-store sales are second to none. They were up 45% last quarter. Don't really see that slowing, even though we have modeled in a bit of a slowdown from that. And not just at their own retail stores where they have a lot of room to open more stores. They're in the low 200s. At their wholesale accounts, the big department stores, they're seeing incredible sales increases. So they're going back, they're putting in these shop-in-shops that triple the business when they go in there. So continued growth and upside at Kors.
Laura, you mentioned it, and we've heard a lot of it, certainly some of it anecdotal, the idea that the malls perhaps not as crowded as they might otherwise have been in years past. We don't know how it's going to end up. What's your sense, though, in terms of online and whether we're going to get a surprise perhaps on that side? I mean, given how many people alone just bought iPads and tablets, which in some ways seem to incent them to actually do online shopping.
For sure, and we know that when people have these mobile devices, they're doing that much more surfing on them to ultimately buy. I felt really good coming out of, again, that Black Friday weekend. We saw online sales up over 30%, which was a nice acceleration. But the numbers that I'm starting to see come out of MasterCard Spending Pulse, which gets to track these credit card transactions, actually showed a bit of a deceleration, more to kind of up the high single digit. So these last few days, we know that they kept on those free shipping offers up until the last minute. Hopefully that will come through and still show those mid to high teens that we're hoping for.
Lori, if the last half of holiday shopping season ends up being weak, what do inventory levels look like in Q1, and what does that mean for margins when we eventually deal with fiscal Q1 earnings?
Right. It's a good point, because going into the season, the retailers were very disciplined. They kept their inventories in excellent shape. And that's why the past few weeks they have not had to get overly promotional, which kind of reinforced the consumer saying they're not giving great sales, so I'm going to continue to hold off. So I don't think that there will be a big issue as we get into the first quarter, because I think that they have managed them really well. Obviously, we need some momentum as we go up against difficult comparisons as we get further into the spring.
All right, Lori, good to see you. Thanks for your time. Lori Walks.